Most human beings, however, are unconscious of their divine origin. The avatars, on the other hand, come consciously as manifestations of that divine reality. As the Gospel says in the first chapter, "And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Om. 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 We just had our seasonal coughing interval as part of the service this time of year. It's a joy to see you all. It's been some time due to the different traveling that we've done. And so I'm very glad to welcome you here today and to be welcomed by you, because I have been away too. This topic this week is on Avatara, the descended master. And Swami Kriyananda spoke recently, a few Sundays ago, on this topic in the Indian city of Chennai. And the title of his talk was Religion in the New Age. And to that talk, because he was speaking in Chennai for the first time really since the 60s, they got a hall of 1,500 people. But they were concerned because there was no person actively in Chennai. There's not a center there. There's not an Ananda Chennai yet. And so there was just one monk going every other week or so to the city to kind of drum up energy and put up posters and organize as best he could. But they were concerned because this hall was a bit large, and Swami's talk in Delhi that he had given some time ago had 1,400 people at it, but Swami's been in Delhi since 2003, and here this was a different city that had this hall for 1,500. So a half an hour before his talk began, the hall was already filled. And I don't mean just the seats, also the aisleways and the back and everything. There were 400 people in the lobby watching on a TV monitor who couldn't get in, and there were 1,000 people who were turned away at the door. So if you wonder why Swamiji loves India and why we all love India, that's part of it. You can say, today a direct disciple of Yogananda is giving a talk on religion in the New Age, and 3,000 people will come. I want to play for you an excerpt of Swamiji's talk. It's about 6 minutes long, so that you can experience that and also hear his words on Avatara.
Amen.
I was here 50 years ago in 1960, 52 years ago. It was then called Madras. I was staying in a hotel, and it was the reverse monsoon. I was not able to move anywhere, and I wanted very much to go into seclusion before I returned to Calcutta to resume my duties in the organization there. And at the end of my meditation in the morning, I asked Babaji, please to help me to go, to find some place of seclusion. And I went down to the restaurant and was having my breakfast when a man sitting at the table next to me, he said, I have a house in Kodaikanal. I would like to offer it to you for seclusion. I won't be there for 10 days. So I got my beautiful seclusion. In many wonderful ways, Babaji has guided this work. And through these masters, he is Amar. and his power has gone to all religions and all avatars who come into this world to help. And I am deeply grateful to be able to represent him as well as my guru and my entire line of gurus. Many people believe today that we are still in Kali Yuga, that Kali Yuga is supposed to last another 430,000 years. Well, I think that if that were true, we would end up all like worms by the end of 430,000 years. It is not Kali Yuga. Swami Sri Yukteswar, my Param Guru, explained that during Kali Yuga, a false calculation came into the picture, and people misunderstood a day of, they thought that a year was a day of Brahma, not a day of Brahma. I forget the expression. And anyway, he said that actually Kali Yuga lasts only 1200 years. 1200 descending, 1200 ascending. He said that in 1900 we came fully into Dwapara Yuga. Dwapara Yuga is still a materialistic age, but now we don't see the kind of things that we used to see in the 2,000 years ago when people were butchering each other freely. Even today, in Spain and France even, they enjoy bullfighting. I don't think anybody in this country or in most countries would like bullfighting. We have a different consciousness today. We're not very kind, but we're kinder than that. And what I want to say is that we are in an age of energy. Now we see that people, a niece of mine wrote me and said that everywhere I go I hear the word energy. Energy is actually the reality beneath this wooden table here. All of matter is really only a vibration of energy. Matter doesn't exist except as an energy vibration. From there it becomes easier to understand that energy is probably only a manifestation of thoughts. And thoughts are only a manifestation of consciousness. This whole universe is a dream of God's. This whole universe is a manifestation of his consciousness. Now, Swami Shankaracharya, many years ago, more than 2,000 years ago, said that the nature of consciousness is not just consciousness, like a thing. It is Satchidananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. We are made of bliss. And that is why you and I, the only thing we really want in life is happiness, bliss on a lower octave. And even people who seek revenge and so on, they still want happiness, they just have misunderstood the meaning of happiness. All of life is a search for bliss. And we begin in the beginning of our incarnations. How long have you been coming back to this world? Quite possibly days of Brahma. People can find so many wonderful ways of getting into delusion. It really staggers the imagination. If this doesn't work, that doesn't work. This woman doesn't work, the other one won't. If this man doesn't suit me, another one might. It can go on forever. And when this planet exhausts its possibilities, there are countless other planets. This is only one planet in a vast universe. The universe is full of life everywhere. God's show is incredibly complex and yet wonderful.
Forgive me for ending it there. It's just wanting to go on. Of course, the whole talk is available online, as well as a question and answer session he held for about 100 people before the talk, I think it was. And so that's also online. The avatars, as Swamiji hinted at, of course, and was in the reading, they don't come to show off. It isn't that Jesus is up in heaven feeling like, I'm just as great as everyone else up here. Why don't I go down to earth where I'll be hot stuff? It's not out of any need of his that he came. They come for us in response to the need of the times in particular. And so just as it says, it isn't when virtue declines and vice predominates and God says, I better send someone to earth or the whole place is just going to blow up. So, okay, Krishna, can you go and clean house? It isn't that. It is also in response to the call when souls cry out and say, we need help, that the avatars come. And could you hand me the autobiography? We need to then look to, as Yogananda said, look to the avatars who have come most recently in time. It isn't that any one is greater than any other, as Yogananda said, in heaven there is no captain and assistant captain and soldiers. All are equal in God. But each one comes historically to correct an imbalance of that time. When Buddha came, he came to say, it isn't just praying and doing rituals, it's putting your own willpower into it. Yogananda came and said, pray to Divine Mother, not to Heavenly Father, because, not meaning not, but he said, I prefer the Mother to the Father because the Mother is closer than the Father. The Father will punish. The Father will say, you got a C, and I told you couldn't get anything less than a B-, and so you will go to bed without dinner. And the Mother will say yes. And then when the Father is then reading the newspaper in satisfaction, the Mother will slip Triscuits and biscuits and things under the door and some cheese and crack it open and give some orange juice. And so, I'm glad that resonates. But Jesus said, pray to Heavenly Father. And was he wrong? Of course not. Jesus said, God is your Father. Which Yogananda is saying, well, Mother is closer than Father, but Jesus was saying, God is your Father. He's not a judge. That was what he was correcting. He's not some disinterested judge completely unrelated to you. Said, oh, errant soul, where's a thunderbolt? Now, one blemish removed. He's saying he is your own Father. Like the story of the prodigal son, how the father forgave. This was my son that was dead. Let us rejoice. Just the sheer fact of the return was enough to win his forgiveness, which was already there. So Jesus was bringing God that much closer in his time. So again, it's the needs of the time. So what are the needs of our time? What have been our prayers that have drawn this line of avatars? As Yogananda said, an avatar is not some perfected being that God quietly drops out of heaven and imports into this world. An avatar is a soul just like us who has overcome, who has become free. Just as it says in the readings, as they are like us, so we are like them. You can think of an avatar as somebody who has gone to graduate school. And so, though we may still be in, okay, I was going to say first grade, but I think Martin's more right. We may still be in kindergarten. And believe there are rewards all along the way. The first stage of realization is to become a Jivan Mukta. And is in that stage, do you get rid of all of your karma? No. The first stage of realization requires us to overcome our ego, our sense of separation, that which creates the karma. Because we may be working on being nice over here and overcoming that karma, and then suddenly find that we're becoming afraid over here of doing the wrong thing. And so if we just had to get rid of our old karma, that might be possible, but we're creating all kinds of new karma in the meantime. But the ego is the big problem that when it is dissolved, our karma becomes finite. There will not be any new karma. And that is the stage to strive for, Yogananda said, in this lifetime. Partly, I think, because he said, listen, just get over the ego and become a saint. It's easier to work out your past karma once you're a saint. In fact, everything goes easier once you're a saint. And so what need of ours has drawn these masters? As Babaji says in the autobiography of a yogi, the cries of many bewildered worldly men and women have not fallen unheard on the ears of the great ones. You have been chosen to bring spiritual solace through Kriya Yoga to numerous earnest seekers. The millions who are encumbered by family ties and heavy worldly duties will take new heart from you, this is to Lahiri Mahashaya, a householder like themselves. You must guide them to see that the highest yogic attainments are not barred to the family man. Even in the world, the yogi who faithfully discharges his responsibilities without personal motive or attachment treads the sure path of enlightenment. There was a time when to seek God you had to go to the cave because the world was just too grossly opposed to that. And probably some of us were in those caves. You can bet on it. Because then we come here and say, you know, I wouldn't mind going back to the cave. And it's funny because teaching in India, we often get students whose parents are concerned that they really will go to the cave. The first time I found that, they said, my parents are concerned I'm taking your Raja Yoga class because they're afraid I may go to the Himalayas. And I thought, and I'm serious. And why? Because my cousin did it. Just like, oh, okay. But on the other hand, this different man in that same yoga class came into class one morning and he was just smiling. And a little more than usual. And so we said, good morning. And so he was itching to tell us something. And finally when it came to, he said, I just have to tell you, this morning is the day of the parent-teacher conferences at my child's school. And so I got there late, and there was a long line, and it's basically a first-come, first-served thing, of parents waiting to see the teacher. And I had to see them before I could come to this class. And so I was agitated because of how long it was going to take. And the person in front of me said, what's the problem? And he said, I just have a yoga class. And he said, oh, you can go ahead of me. And then the guy in front of him said, what's going on? He said, yoga class. And oh, please. And they went all the way up the line. Yoga class, no, yoga, come. He went to the front of the line, saw the teacher, and came on time. Again, why do we love India? And why will you all love India? If you haven't yet gone, try to go. It's a really blessed place. LA is blessed too, but still, they each have their gifts. Now, the other thing to remember with the avatars is, what good would it do us if some perfected soul were just dropped out of heaven, said, check me out, and then leave? We have to see how we can follow in their footsteps. They go through great adversity. Did Jesus have adversity? Did Yogananda have adversity? Plenty. He had a few lawsuits he had to contend with. Has even Swami Kriyananda dealt with much adversity? Of course. And yet, they have always emerged victorious. But we face adversity all the time. And it can be pretty scary. And sometimes it can even be pretty hurtful when it comes to us, not from some nasty person on the street hurling a finger at us. Well, not hurling a finger, thrusting a finger. Hurling a finger would be really bad. I think that was hurling insults and thrusting a finger merged together. When it comes from our own. Saint Teresa of Avila was a beautiful saint, and she was brought into a convent where she had spent, after having spent 25 years there, them all nursing her back to health because she was very sickly. And they all uniformly judged her as disobedient and said, you must be punished. Every single one of 180 sisters judged her as disobedient. Then they had a hard time knowing how to punish her, though, because they said, you should fast more. But she loved to fast. You must be confined to your cell. There's nothing she would have preferred. You must spend more hours in disciplinary prayer with pleasure. So all they could sentence her to was the normal life of the convent, which involved going down to the parlor every afternoon and conversing with people for hours. And that was difficult. That's actually what she was opposed to. She was starting a reform movement, and they didn't take kindly to the thought that they needed any reforming. But just to go on, because again, when we are facing persecution, we can feel very alone. I remember there was some time ago I was going through a difficulty with a friend who basically, to my view, had betrayed me. And I had a dream that in this dream, this friend, it seemed kind of like a past life, stabbed me in the heart. I mean, literally. And I woke up, and I was so hurt, and my heart physically hurt. I mean, it wasn't just beating. I mean, there was a sharp pain there. And I was really disturbed, because I thought, how could this be? I could almost feel that sense of surprise. I mean, if someone else stabs you in the heart, like even the person who just threw the finger at you, at least maybe you saw it coming. This is your friend. And how could I have been so blind, and how could this person have done this? To all the thoughts that come. I was walking along, because it lasted somewhat through the morning, and I was even thinking, I said, Divine Mother, what am I supposed to do with this feeling? And then this thought came back, well, though I was murdered, I survived it. I mean, here I am walking around thinking about it, remembering it, kind of being sad about the fact that I was killed. I'm obviously here to be sad about it. I survived it. Oh, it's true, I had to reincarnate, but here I am. What really happened? Oh, okay, so I probably killed you, and I'm sorry, and let's just shake hands and forget it. Because we're still here, we go on, we learn. It's fine. And it couldn't have happened unless it was my karma to have it happen. And again, even if it was the most unfair thing in the world, here I am living to tell the tale. And so I let it go. Now, we need the avatars to show us how to persevere in the face of adversity. And just another, I'll end with the story of Saint Teresa, though whether she was an avatar or not, I can't say, but certainly a high soul. She went to Seville, to found a monastery, and this was in the mid-1500s, so about 50 years after Columbus. There's Cortez and all this gold coming from, you know where, over to Spain. And suddenly Spain is very wealthy with all these things that they have taken. Sorry, it's probably the Indian genes in me that, not American Indian, but because the Taj Mahal also was once very beautiful, and now it's less so. And yet, anyway, I won't go into that. No politics. But, so Sevilla was the port and the recipient of all of this gold. So this was a big deal. We are in the modern age now. We have wealth, we have gold, we have power. We have these ships that have gone to the New World and have sailed through the Straits of Magellan. I mean, Magellan did it. I mean, all these things are powerful. They didn't have the internet, but they had boats. And that was just about as much shrinking the world for them as the internet is for us now, relatively speaking. And so there was much pride and materialism. And so here is a nun, also a woman, which no one was very impressed by women in that time, outwardly acting in the world, coming to preach the ideal of poverty. And so there was a huge uprising. There was, before she even got there, people had circulated propaganda that her father confessor, who was not St. John of the Cross, who was sort of her twin soul, but another father, Father Gracian, was actually her lover. So, even though he was 30 years younger than she, but oh well. And so they started this whole thing that when she comes, the bishop should not receive her. And the bishop was appropriately incensed and said, I will not. And they said, and he should refuse his permission to grant, refuse to grant his permission to her to found a monastery. And he refused. And there was much rejoicing. And from her point of view, I mean, just think about how that might feel and how unfair it would feel. And she said, very calmly, that's okay. Let people talk. It amuses me. She said, but as long as they're talking, let them say everything they can, because no one can believe that all of these things are true. And then, not content with their success, they said, and the bishop should demand that she leave the city. And that's where they went too far. The bishop said, I will. Bring this woman to me. And as soon as he laid eyes on her, he realized she was a saint. He not only said, please stay in the city, he said, please found multiple convents in this city, and I will come and consecrate them. And so when she opened her first one in Sevilla, the bishop himself came in this grand procession to basically bless the monastery in front of everybody, all the public. And when she knelt down for his blessing, he stopped her and he knelt for her blessing and said, please baptize me as a saint. So the divine always reaches in a hand at the, maybe not even the 11th hour, maybe the 13th hour, but the hand comes. And so just as the avatars have overcome, just as Jesus said, to those who overcome, even as I myself overcame, let us take courage from them and face all our trials with joy and with a sense of humor. God bless you. In place of our normal whispers reading, I would like to invite Shivani to read something that she can introduce.
God incarnates very often on earth, and he always incarnates as the guru. So the guru of each one of us really is an avatar. This is a letter that Paramahansa Yogananda wrote to a disciple, a woman disciple who was going through a very difficult time. And I thought it might give us courage and comfort to understand the commitment that the guru makes to each one of his disciples. He wrote to her, "You must never lose courage. Divine Mother sent me to pilot you out of the clouds of your mind. Everybody's difficulty is different, and he or she has to win that test of karma. Overcome all by inward calling constantly on God and utmost devotion in words, thought, action, and obedience to Guru. Your troubles I do not mind. I will never give up my job about you. It is better to conquer one evil and not live with it forever. Never for a moment identify yourself with momentary flashes of error. Have no fear, even when I am gone from your visible eyes. You will never be alone. I may not scold you then, but I shall ever be with you, and through Divine Mother guard you from all harm, and I will constantly whisper to you guidance through your own loving self. So do not become discouraged and tired, but ever be interested in working for Divine Mother, no matter if war, sickness, death dances around you. Be cut to pieces, but never give up. A smooth life is not a victorious life. And I will give you lots of my good karma, so you will get through. I will not only ever forgive you, but ever lift you up, no matter how many times you fall. Keep unceasingly trying to conquer. Not only will I visibly help you, but not only will I invisibly help you, but also visibly through many who are here. I am not building a mansion for you, or giving you riches that will perish, but I am making an imperishable home with all riches in my Divine Mother's mansion. Paramahansa Yogananda.